Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Tantra Tuesday from Authentic Tantra. And we are going to be answering your questions. We are dedicated to answering your questions every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Or is it daylight savings time? Can't remember which one it is. But anyway, we're here every Tuesday morning for you, myself, or Marta, aka Yoni Pixie, answering your questions that you either send to us or ask us on the air. So here we are. So today we're going to be answering a question about marriage and sex, because if you watch television or comedy, you may be aware that there is a running joke that once you get married, sex flies out the window. Good sex flies out the window, right? So it's all hot and passionate and juicy when you're dating or when you first get together, and then you get married and then things get boring. Right? And we actually had a question come in. We actually get many questions about this, but one of the recent questions that came in was from a person asking if this has to be true all the time. Good morning, Brandy. Thank you so much for joining us. So the question is, I hear people say that sex goes out the window when you get married. Why is this, and do you believe that this is true? So there's a few reasons that I think that sex goes out the window when people get married. And one of the reasons is stress. One of the number one reasons that we disconnect from our partners and disconnect from ourselves is because of the day-to-day stress, particularly when you have children. People get married and they have children, and you know, it's stressful. It's wonderful and a beautiful experience from what I hear, but it's extremely stressful. Even I get really stressful, and I don't have kids. I have a cat, right? So that's one of the reasons sex goes out the window, but it doesn't always have to. And here's the thing. When we're married, we are in a perfect position to have the best sex of our entire lives. And I'm going to share with you 3 reasons why I believe this is totally true. And I'm speaking about marriages that are healthy and functional. So if you're married to someone you really don't want to be married to, or there's a lot of dysfunction, or it's an abusive relationship, these aren't necessarily going to apply. But if you're in a healthy, functional marriage, a healthy, functional relationship that you want to take deeper, that you want to expand upon, here's 3 reasons that I believe that marriage is a perfect opportunity for you to be having the absolute best sex of your life. Number 1 is trust. You marry this person because you feel a bond with them that is unique to any other person you've ever experienced. There's something special there. There's something magic there. And you've made this commitment to be together, to cultivate that bond, to deepen that bond. So there is a level of trust that is established in a marriage. And I can say, because I just got married, which is why this is a topic of importance to me. But I can say that when you actually sign that paper and you actually go through that ritual and that ceremony, there is an anchoring, there is a cementing of that bond and that agreement. It's like the external confirmation of this internal bond that you have, right? So you have this layer, you have this foundation of trust that allows you to deepen and explore areas that perhaps you wouldn't in a different situation. Because in order to really deepen our experience of our sexuality and deepen our intimacy, it takes trust. We have to trust that when we go to these dark shadow places, we're going to be safe. We're going to be held. We're going to be seen. We're going to be loved. We're going to be accepted. It's essential. So trust is essential. And the actual practice of getting married, the actual ritual of getting married, is a beautiful, as I said, cementing and anchoring of that trust. This leads us to intimacy. So I heard a beautiful definition of intimacy several years ago. And the definition of intimacy that they gave is that intimacy is the practice of crossing boundaries with permission. So crossing boundaries with permission is intimacy. Crossing boundaries without permission is abuse, is violence, okay? So using that definition of intimacy, because we have this strong foundation of trust, it allows us to, as I said, explore areas that we may have been afraid to before, that we may feel shy about, that we may feel embarrassed about, that we may feel scared about. So we're in this cocoon, I want to say, of love, of connection, of trust, and then we can really dive deep into exploring these layers and exploring these areas that we may feel skittish or uncertain about if we don't have that solid foundation of trust. And I'm going to say, you know, going from dating to marriage, there is a difference, and that difference is awesome. It doesn't have to be a bad difference. It's an awesome difference. It's a deepening difference. Okay? So that's number 2, the deepening of intimacy. Number 3 is depth. Again, when you are living with somebody day in and day out, have you ever noticed that when you cohabitate with someone, you can tell from the moment they walk in the door what kind of mood they're in? Or if they're in a grouchy mood, you can kind of feel it, right? Because we're energy sensitive beings. We can feel each other. And so when we're living together day in and day out and sleeping together, literally our brainwave patterns start to harmonize, start to synchronize. We start to sync in our consciousness. And this allows us to, again, deepen this connection. So it goes beyond words. It goes beyond the intellect. It's truly just an energetic emanation. And so when we're making love with these 3 things in place, with this trust in place, with this willingness to cross boundaries with permission, and with this day-to-day depth that's cultivated. And yes, some people will say that depth can lead to boredom, and that's a different conversation we'll have. And yet, at the same time, it's this beautiful quality that isn't going to be found in a more superficial relationship. You don't have the same level of depth when you're dating because you're exploring, right? You're just kind of playing. There's a special quality, there's a special bond that occurs in your intimate relationships, right? And so it allows for the blossoming of a flavor, of a type of connection that can be more profound, more fulfilling, and more delicious, more sustainable than any other connection that you've had your entire life. This is truly what marriage is about. Marriage is truly about, when it's done from a tantric viewpoint, I'm going to say, from a holistic viewpoint, where we're including body, mind, spirit, and sex. This is truly the beauty that marriage can offer us, because we're using our relationship as a tool to cultivate union on every one of these levels. We want to have an emotional union. We want to have a mental union. We want to have a spiritual, soul connection. And we want all of that to feed in to our sexual connection. If all of these are in place, it truly allows for a communion of body, heart, mind, and soul. And that's why I truly believe that married sex has the potential to be the best sex of your entire life. It may not always be the most, spectacular, like fireworks sex. It may not. I don't know what your relationship is like, right? I hope it is. I hope it is for you. And even if it isn't big fireworks, sparkly sex, it can offer this depth and profundity that you aren't going to find in a more casual or superficial relationship. So for those of you who are married, I just want to, share, we'll talk a lot more about being married, since it's a topic of interest to me, since I'm recently married, right? And I'm really interested in exploring this topic more deeply, because I know there's a lot of sadness in the world about marriage not being as fulfilling and juicy as it can. And I really, really believe that our married sex and our married connection is sacred, is precious, and is the perfect foundation for us to have the most soul nourishing and soul quenching and soul satisfying communion of our lives. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. I do invite you to send our questions to us, either on the Facebook page or send us a message in Facebook, or you can connect with us at authentictantra.com, and you can send us your questions. Love answering your questions, love connecting with you, and thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.